Hey everybody. So this week I said that this was going to be the week that I started doing season previews for the upcoming season. I've got all 31 teams to do. I wanted to start this earlier in the week, but I've just been really busy this week, so I haven't been able to yet. So we're going to start it today. We're going to do 2 teams today, and I will have all 31 teams done by the start of the season. I can guarantee you that. So these are season previews. These are not my season predictions. My season prediction video will be its own thing, and that will come later as we get closer to the season. These, I'm going team by team, looking at their lineup, looking at their roster, and seeing, talking about what kind of team I think they're going to be, how good do I think they're going to be, and just talking about one specific team at a time. Most people do this in alphabetical order, and I wanted to change things up a little bit, so I'm doing it in alphabetical order, but reverse. So we're starting with the Winnipeg Jets. We'll start with the W's and then work our way all the way back up and end with the A's. So, without further ado, I guess it's time to get started. For these lineups, I used Roster Resource. If there was anything that I wanted to change, I did make changes based on what I think the lineup's closer going to look like, closer to what it's going to look like. But don't yell at me if you think the lines are wrong or the defense pairs are off. I mainly used Roster Resource for these. So I'm just going by what they said. A lot can change, in training camp, with injuries throughout the season, and obviously lines change all the time just from the coach changing things up. So here we have the Winnipeg Jets. The first line, Mark Scheifele is centering Kyle Connor and Blake Wheeler. The second line center spot is up for grabs. It's either going to be Brian Little or it's going to be Jack Roslovic if he can take that spot as a young up-and-coming player. For this purpose, I said let's say Roslovic has a great camp, puts up good numbers in the preseason, looks really good, and takes that second line center spot. I think this is the best lineup for the Winnipeg Jets if they're at their best. So Roslovic would take that second spot with Nikolai Ehlers on one side and Patrick Laine on the other. And then the third line, that would drop Brian Little down to the third line center, which I think is where he belongs. I think asking him to be a second liner is a little bit much to ask, but him on the third line I think is perfect, with Matthew Perreault and Andrew Kopp on the side. And then the fourth line would be Adam Lowry, Marco Dano, and Brandon Tanev. On defense, Josh Morrissey and Jacob Trouba as your top pair, Ben Sherratt and Dustin Byfuglien as your second pair, and then Dmitry Kulikov and Tyler Myers as a very good third pair. In goal, Connor Hellebuck is obviously the starter, and I think there is a real fight for the backup spot there. You have Laurent Brossoit, who's coming in from Edmonton, and I guess penciled in as the backup now. We'll see how training camp goes. And then Eric Comrie, who's a young goalie who will either play in Manitoba in the AHL or steal that backup job from Brossoit. I put him on there because I think he does have a chance to take that job. The extra players, you have Nick Paton, Brendan Lemieux as forwards, and then Joe Morrow as the seventh defenseman. And I put Tucker Poolman up there. On Roster Resource, he's slated to start in the AHL this season, but I think Poolman has a good shot of making this team. He's played a good number of games last year, and I think he's a pretty solid younger defenseman. He's not super young. He's 25, but he's still a younger guy. I think he has a good chance to either be the seventh defenseman or maybe even take a spot in the lineup. We'll see how everything pans out. But I definitely wanted to include him because he definitely has a shot. Alright, so that's what their lineup is looking like right now. Obviously, no one's injured yet. And when you look at it, Winnipeg has a very strong lineup. They are a real contender this year. Their forward group looks fantastic. They have an extremely strong defense, 1 through 7. Even 1 through 8, counting Poolman, they have a very strong defense core. Goaltending, I love Connor Hellebuck. He had a tremendous season last year. I'm a little bit worried about maybe the backup goalie spot, and we've seen throughout the course of the years in the NHL, that backup goaltending is important. You need to have a starter that is fresh and ready to go come playoff time. You have to have a backup that can play a solid number of games and win in those games. So if there's any sort of question marks with this team, and there's not a lot, I would say the backup goaltending spot is one. We'll see if either of these guys can turn out to be a very good backup goalie. And second line center is a question, because I think Brian Little is better suited to be a third liner at this point. He's 30 years old and his point totals haven't been all that great the last couple of years. I think if Little's in your third line spot, that's fantastic. If Little's your second line center, I think that's a little much to ask. So without Paul Stastny, who left in free agency, I think that second line center spot could be an issue, but if Jack Roslovic really steps up and plays the way that I think people really think he can play and develop into the player that he could be, then he'll fill that second line center role and they'll be fine. So not a lot of question marks here. Very, very good lineup. This is a very, very good team. I think it would take an absolute disastrous season for them to miss the playoffs. I really don't see that happening. Or they would need multiple important players knocked out with injuries for significant time for this team to be in danger of missing the playoffs. They play in a very, very competitive division, which is why I don't think they're a lock to win the division or finish top 2 or 3 or anything. But I do think that they're a playoff team, and I think overall they have an extremely good lineup. As with most teams, I mean, this isn't a knock against Winnipeg, because you could say this with almost any good team in the NHL, but their whole season, the only thing that I think would really derail their whole season would be Connor Hellebuck getting hurt for a significant amount of time. Because, I mean, Laurent Brossoit is not an NHL starter. Eric Comrie is not an NHL starter. I think they're on the lower end of backup goalies in the league, and if Hellebuck gets hurt, this team, I mean, they would have to make a move at that point for a goaltender, because neither of these two would cut it as a starter. So that's, the only thing that really would, I guess, worry me. But again, no one expects their starting goaltender get hurt, for a significant amount of time. And certainly most teams would be in big, big trouble if their starter got hurt like that. So I'm not even going to worry about that. This is a very good team. I think Brendan Lemieux has a chance to really make this team. He's slated as an extra guy now, but I think he could definitely take a fourth line spot on this team. I think he could knock Deneau out of the lineup. He could knock Kopp out of the lineup. Maybe even Tanev out of the lineup. Because without Matt Hendricks there, this team doesn't have that guy that's really that tough guy. And Lemieux can be that. He's very willing to drop his gloves. He's a very physical player. And Matt Hendricks has been that guy for the last couple of years in Winnipeg. And then Chris Thorburn was that guy before him. But Hendricks is gone. Thorburns off in St. Louis. They really don't have that guy. And I think Lemieux could, if he plays well enough, could make this team and be that guy. They definitely are a fairly tough team. Like, they have guys throughout the lineup willing to drop the gloves and stand up for their teammates. I mean, even Mark Scheifele has shown it in his young career that he will stand up for his teammates if someone takes a big hit or takes a cheap shot or something like that. Adam Lowry is certainly capable of doing that. Brandon Tanev can do that a little bit. He's not a big guy, but he's dropped the gloves a few times. Jacob Trouba is more than willing to fight. Dustin Byfuglien, Ben Sherratt. They have multiple guys who can drop the gloves, but they don't have that one tough guy who does it all that often. Brendan Lemieux can be that guy who does it like 8 times a year, which nowadays is a decent amount. So, I think he has a chance to make this team. I think Tucker Pullman has a chance to make this team. And overall, this is a very deep roster, a very good roster, and certainly a team that could, I mean, without a doubt, win their division, win the West, and this is a Stanley Cup contending team. So, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, I would be very, very excited for this upcoming season. And I think it's going to be a good one for the Jets. They took a lot of people by surprise with how good they were last year. I don't think they're surprising anyone this year. They're expected to be that good. And, we'll have to wait and see how the season goes for them. But I expect this team to be certainly in the playoffs and probably making a deep playoff run. So, there you have it for Winnipeg. Very, very good team, very deep team. Excellent lineup in offense, defense, and goaltending. Just very, very good. So, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links in the description below. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. One team down, 30 more to go. And, I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Doing another one right up next. So, talk to you guys soon.